Greetings, family. This is Sister Adrianne with the Truth of God Times International Newsletter and Holy Times Magazine. And I'm here with our brother Douglas, our editor in chief. Hi, Brother Douglas. How are you?
I am doing excellent. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to chat with us. So, if you don't mind, just share with everyone what temple you attend.
I'm from the Portland, Oregon temple. That's where I'm primarily at, but we do support the Western region as well.
Awesome. Okay. And do you mind sharing just a little bit about your story, how you came to the truth of God?
Well, it's an interesting story. I came in sometimes around 2018, but before that time, I was searching for the truth. I had come from a very long journey, being in multiple false churches from my original home, which is in Nigeria, Lagos, Nigeria. And when I came to the US in New York, went to a couple of false churches and whatnot. Then I moved to Oregon. I was still in false churches, but there was something in me when I was coming to the US that said, I want to go here and not lose myself. Because I had friends and other people that I knew that came to the US and I thought they were different from what they were back home. So I had that in me and just doing my best to find out what the truth is. And at this period of my life as well, I wanted to, know things for myself as against, just take what people believed. One thing I always say when I look back is for the first time in my life during that period, I'm saying 2016 going upwards, 16, 17 was I wanted to be taking ownership of my faith as against just mortgaging it out to someone. Someone is just telling me what to do. I wanted to know more for myself and be able to explain. So that journey took me to many things, many natural things that I was learning about the way the world works, and also many spiritual things as well. I ended up watching a couple of things, but as God would bless me and God would make it happen, sometimes in 2018, the summer of 2018, I was working a job. I was in a university as an assistant professor, no, not an assistant professor, an assistant to the professor. Um, and when school goes out for summer, you lose your job. You don't have a job. So I didn't have a job, and I was working this menial job at that point, and I was really praying to God. And the way I describe it is, God put me down on the floor. All my pride was shattered. I had all these master's degrees and whatnot, and I couldn't get a job. So I was still praying, still searching for the truth at that time. Then in the summer of 2018, one day I was in the office and I stumbled upon the truth of God. I was watching something else, then I saw something on the side. Jesus Christ is God. Is Jesus Christ God? Question mark, question mark. And I looked at it like, that's interesting. So one thing led to another. I clicked it, and from that time till now, the journey has just been really great. Like just learning a lot, coming out of my first church, sitting at home for a couple of months, just listening to Pastor Jennings, because I just knew, you know, I cannot sit under anybody that I know more than. If you're a pastor and I know more than you, I cannot sit under you. So I sat at home. I just watched Pastor until my heart got pricked. I was dealing with some things that I was struggling with. Then my heart got pricked, like, man, I got to stop this thing and be baptized. So I remember picking up the phone, calling headquarters. I want to be baptized. Then they directed me to Portland, and because I was going to make plans to fly to Philadelphia and be baptized. I was in Eugene then, which is a smaller city away from Portland. But they directed me to Portland, and I'm like, oh, great, there's something closer to me. So I came down to Portland in September, I think it was September 11th, 2018. November 11th, 2018. God filled me with the Holy Ghost September 28th, but it was November 11th, 2018. I came down to Portland and I got baptized. And since 2018 till now, I'm just blessed, and God has been so merciful to me. I've just seen my growth spiritually, and now I can say that I know what I believe. The little that I know it, and I hold on to it, and I'm no longer depending on some false prophet to tell me about the faith. I am privileged to listen to an apostle and to listen to faithful ministers that help me to continue to grow in my faith. Yeah.
That's amazing. Awesome story. Okay, and then speaking of your journey, tell a little bit about how you got involved with the True to God Times, the team. I know you're editor in chief now, but you weren't always, right? So how did you get involved?
Well, I think sometimes in 2023, I wanted to do more. I used to be an editor, online editor for a publication, a Pan African publication back when I was in Nigeria. I was editor then, so that was what I did for a living. Before I decided to transition out of that, because sometimes journalism doesn't pay you that much. Um, so I transitioned out of that. So I know I had those skills, and God bless me because when I started journalism, I was on radio for a short period. Then I transitioned into online journalism, but I didn't really stay long as a writer because my editor then and the publisher back then, they just saw something in me and like, oh, look, you can see the big picture. Let's move you up a little bit because you can see the big picture. Let's not waste you, writing. But also that coincided with the editor leaving for another job. So the position was open and they got me into the position and they gave me a lot of support and it just took off with my career. So that background I have, and I felt like, what, there's a publication here. Why not use my skills and support God's work? So that's how I came into it. So I joined in 23 as a writer. Then I started doing some editing, and position opened again, and they're like, "Hey, why don't you go in there?" I'm like, "Okay, fine." I was hesitant because they offered it to me a couple of times, but I was hesitant because I'm also involved in a couple of things, and so I wasn't sure if I would be able to give enough time to it. But eventually, I took it on. I say, "Well, we'll see what we can do." But I'm grateful for it now. Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. And then with this second edition of the Holy Times magazine, the theme is change, right? So share a little behind the scenes. How did we arrive at that theme? What was that process like, especially for you as the editor in chief?
Yeah.
When do you even start thinking about that?
Yes. So we were just talking because Truth of God Times, we do a lot of random chats and sort of casual chats about things. And I think it was one of those meetings we were having, and we were just talking. And somebody mentioned we floated the idea of having a theme for the magazine, and someone floated the idea of change, and it just stuck. So in the next 2, 3, 4 meetings, no other idea came up, and so change just stuck there. Then for me personally, it was all about taking that change and say, okay, how can we tell different stories about change? Okay, where do we start from? How do we even define change? And I remember when we kicked off the publication process for the July 2025 edition, I remember asking people, what does change mean to you? And they described it in different ways, progress, increase, decrease, improvements, metamorphosis, all kinds of things. I'm like, okay, so how can we tell stories that sort of reflect all of those different definitions of change, and how can we tell it in a way that is relatable to the saints? So that was the process we went through, and we worked with writers and other editors on the team as well, the publisher who was very supportive to come up with that. And one of the interesting things that happened during some of our conversations was we didn't know what the cover was going to be like, but for a change, we wanted to not use pastor on the cover. So we thought about, okay, how else can we do this? And one interesting conversation happened where a sister was like, hey, can we show the different sort of phases of the church's growth and how we moved from the basement? And everybody just gathered to that idea. We coalesced around it, and the graphic designer was on that call as well. And she said, you know what, I'm going to throw up some mocks and we'll see where we go from there. And she came up with this beautiful mosaic-like, pictures of, the transition from, Jerome Street to Linley Avenue, the pictures and a time, sort of a watch behind the scenes there. And I just saw it and I felt like it's abstract, but you know what? It will get the attention of people. And so far, so good, because we've started selling the magazine. I thought people would be asking questions and it would be like a good topic to start a conversation starter. But apparently, folks already understand what it is. They see it and like, oh, I know what that is. I'm like, oh, great. So it's good, but again, it started from just a random conversation and just opening it up to the team, and it just morphed from there into something that ended up being the cover of the magazine. Yeah.
That's awesome. And so now that we've been selling the magazine, folks have been reading it. What's one thing you really want people to take away after reading the magazine?
Well, first off, I would say give us your feedback. We're still improving as a team. A lot of us on the team are not journalists or communications people, but they have a passion and they want to tell stories and they want to share what's going on. So we want to keep improving. Um, but in terms of what I think about the stories, that's the question, right? What I think about the stories, or what people are, what I want people to take away is just see the different ways that change is happening amongst and within the body. Different ways people are increasing, different things that the Lord has brought us from. We all come from different backgrounds, and one thing I've heard previously is I've heard people talk about is how everybody in the truth of God has a story, a unique story. There's similarities between all of our stories. We all came from darkness to the light, but it's a unique story. And what we try to capture in this edition is all of that change that is happening in different ways with different things. Whether it's someone changing from regular cuisine to plant-based cuisine, that's a change, right? Whether it's someone coming out from a very traumatic background in gangs and whatnot into becoming an usher, welcoming people into the house of God, that's a change, right? Whether it's a small change like, oh, I moved my profession from a barber to a photographer, that's a change. So all kinds of change happening, and how we should be prepped for change in our own lives as well, and more so to appreciate the little things and the little changes that is happening in our lives. You know, we all came from something else, but now we're here. We know Jesus Christ is God. We know God's name. That's a change. That's faith growing in us. So all of that stuff, we hope that all of the stories would encourage people, would inspire people, and would help them to continue to seek change, the change that God wants for us in our lives individually.
That's awesome. And so someone may see this and say, well, how do I get involved? I like the way you describe how the team works together. I want to be a part of that team. What should they do?
Well, look at our socials, follow us on social media. You will see our contacts there, and feel free to reach out to Truth of God Times, TOGTimes at truthofgod.com. Just send an email if you want to be a part of the team. There's different positions that are open, and we're welcoming new people. If you want to be a writer, an editor, you want to work on the PR team, social media, so many things, videographer, photographer, just send an email. Send your resume. The main thing we're looking for is your passion and your dedication to the work. You can be trained, you can get new skills. You don't have to be like a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist. You don't have to. But we just want to see your passion and your dedication to the work. So feel free to reach out to us via social media or TOGTimes at truthofgod.com.
Awesome. And then someone may have read the magazine and say, well, I have a good story to share as well. How should they do that?
We want you to reach out to us again via social media or Truth of God Times, TOGTimes at truthofgod.com. Reach out to us. We want to tell your story as well. And we want to capture all kinds of things. It's a global magazine, it's an international magazine. We want to get stories from all the continents across the world. We want to hear those unique stories, and we want our brothers and sisters in different places to be able to read about things from other places as well and see the similarities that is happening, the changes that are happening in our lives personally, with our families, with the church. So please feel free to reach out to us. Don't worry if you can't write, but you have a story. You can tell us that story. We will write it for you, and make sure that it sort of you approve it and see that it's exactly what you wanted to tell. So feel free to reach out to us again through our social media platforms, and also TOGTimes at truthofgod.com.
Awesome. And just to wrap us up, one last question for you. I know you've been enjoying the convocation. Everyone's excited. What's one word you have to describe your experience so far? Because it's only Saturday, so we have one more day to go. But so far,
One word would be I'm trying to think of the word now. I'm going to distill everything into one.
I put you on the spot.
Yeah, one word would probably be positioning. Let's just try to keep it there. Positioning. If you want me to explain what that means.
Please expand, please.
I think last night the minister, Pastor Benny, was talking about hold your position. And the previous night, the minister was talking about, knowing God and doing what he says. You need to know the God that you serve. And Pastor wrapped it up the first night by saying, you don't just come to church. You need to know the God that you serve. So you need to position yourself for the first resurrection. So positioning, and it's an individual thing. I have to examine myself. How am I positioning myself for the first resurrection? With all the distractions happening, natural and spiritual, with all this distraction, how am I positioning myself? So it's a question that I have to sit with myself and meditate on and say, okay, what am I doing? Douglas, this is not a joke. How am I positioning myself? So yeah, that's what I've taken so far.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Brother Douglas.
Thank you.
And you all stay tuned. There's more to come.